You're listening to an episode recorded during the time Innovation Fuel was part of University Canada West. We are proud and grateful for the work we've done together, and we want to thank the university for being in our podcast. We are now excited to continue the journey of Innovation Fuel into its next chapter. Thanks for listening.
Welcome to Innovation Fuel. I am Gelore Farhadian.
And I am Dave Kiran. If you're new to podcasting, you're in the right place. Innovation Fuel is the University Canada West weekly business podcast that presents you with new stories from entrepreneurs, industry professionals, strategies, and adapting to the current environment and bringing that back into the institution, bringing it back into the UCW community.
Check our episodes at www.ucanwest.ca/Innovation Fuel and subscribe so you do not miss out one of our episodes. Our stories are interesting news stories and the key industry professionals. Dave.
Yeah.
We are educator. We keep saying that we are educator. We keep saying that we are trying to work on employability of our students and equip them with the future skills. What does that mean to you?
When I think future skills, I think emerging technologies. I think about how their students are going to be better ready to serve the environment with the use of technologies. And I think that's a big challenge because I think that it's changing so fast that how do we keep up with it?
Exactly. Do you know that Visa is launching a new credit card that offers Bitcoin instead of miles or cash?
That I just saw that the other day. I'm just so surprised. Visa is going to get, instead of getting air miles, you're going to get Bitcoin points. Wow. It's just like...
Do you know a lot of banks are using the AI and they are removing the tellers?
But this is interesting, Glory, because they did this before. Banks tried to go down this path before, and they went at it too quickly, and they had to crawl back a bit because customers weren't ready. But I think you're right. I think now, and this is what we're talking about, this emerging technologies, I think the timing is right now because now the customers, the employees are more ready to take on that piece. But we need to help them be more ready in the future. And how do we help them be more ready in the future? What do we need to do in our programs, in our courses to help our students to get that work integrated learning experience, to get that experimental learning experience, to bring those technology pieces in to help them?
And skill them, we need to have a skills. I'm not saying for very long future, maybe for next year. Are we ready for next year? What kind of skills it means? The post-COVID skills, what we do need, because then a lot of technology, they are growing during the pandemic, and we understand the need of technology right now more. So I think that we have to be skilled for those technology to be more employable.
And I think the challenge here is the skill piece. How do we get that emerging technology knowledge in? How do we get those instructors to teach this thing and deliver it to the students so that they have that relevant content, that relevant information, and the certifications to support that? And I think today, our guest might be able to help us with that.
Yeah, let's see who is your guest. I don't know. You know that, right? Tell me.
Oh, yeah. Well, today's guest is Wayne Van Damme is the founder, CEO, and president of BlocksEDU Learning Corp. He is an executive with over 40 years of experience in information systems management. Wayne has obtained knowledge and understanding of a wide range of business issues from large to small to medium-sized organizations to complex problems, and has worked in both the private and the public sector.
After 7 years of retirement, he created courses for the Project Management Certificate program at Okanagan College, and it was during this time that Wayne first convinced the idea of education as a service. With us today is Wayne Van Damme. Welcome to the Innovation Fuel.
Thank you very much. And I'd like to say good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to your audience, depending on where they are in the world. So I'm happy to be here.
It's really nice to have you, Wayne. I'm very excited to learn a lot about you. You've got a lot of things in that backstory. You've seen to being from the entrepreneur to the educator. Could you kind of put this together for us, Wayne? Give us a little introduction to who you are, so our audience can get a better understanding of your journey to where you are today.
Absolutely. Actually, it's a very interesting story. Is when I was in high school, my last grade of high school, I live in a small town about 100 kilometers away from where I lived, was one of the first McDonald's opened. So people were going to McDonald's and they were buying Big Macs, and they were coming back to this little town saying, wow, Big Macs are so cool. So myself and a few of my friends said, I wonder if there's money to be made in this. So what we did is we decided that we were going to travel to this big city and buy as many Big Macs as we absolutely could and bring them back and sell them. But we weren't foolish. We're actually quite smart. I think looking back at it is that we said, well, let's do a little research. Let's just make sure that if we're going to spend this money, that people are going to buy Big Macs. So back in those days, two of my friends were really good talkers, way better than I am today. And they went around and did some research and did an interview with people. And they asked them simply, said, do you like Big Macs? I mean, would you buy a Big Mac if it was here today, right now? And even if it was cold or a little soggy? And they said, absolutely, we love Big Macs. So myself and my friend had a car and I had the money. We decided we were going to head into this big city and buy $300 worth of Big Macs. Now, this is many years ago, so $300 was a lot of Big Macs. So we headed off, and as we drove into the Big Macs, they had a special on. And the special was you could get a Big Mac, you could get a Coke, and you could get fries for 86 cents.
Wow.
So we said, So my friend and I, we went and negotiated with management. We said, well, we don't want the fries. We don't want a Coke. What can you give the Big Macs for, right? Well, the Big Macs were selling for 46 cents a piece at that time. We got them for 20 cents. Now, I happen to have the money. My friend had the car, had the money, had $300. That means we bought 1,500 Big Macs. We put them in our car. We drove back 100 kilometers back, and we got there, and we sold every one of those Big Macs for $1 a piece. Well, wow. Not every one of them. Not every one. We ate a few on the way back. So that was my adventure. And I thought, wow, this is pretty cool. We made some money off this. But I was always interested in saying, well, what can I learn from this? And so what I learned from this little venture was simply that, you got to have an idea that people are willing to pay for. That's the very first thing. Have all kinds of ideas, but people don't want to buy it. It's of no value. The second thing is it takes teams. Okay, you have to have a team. Everybody has a different role to play. Whatever. My friend had a car. I had the money. I had two people that could talk and convince people. And then the last thing you need to do is you need to have the money. So the three lessons there were basically, all right, you need to have an idea that people are going to pay for. Secondly, you better have a team behind you because you can't do it all by yourself. And thirdly, you better have some money. So that was my journey. Okay, that was my start. I was hooked. Mm-hmm. I didn't finish high school yet. I was hooked, right? Then later on, my journey continues. Well, what happened later on is I end up going to school, and I have a computer sciences degree, and I decided to form an information technology company. And not just any information technology company. The company would certainly be one that produced software. Okay, so software, custom software, as if it was prepackaged, right? So prepackaged prices was way lower. So we created custom software that we put as a package, and we sold it as package prices. That was successful. Sold that. Now my next venture wasn't quite as successful as that. So I had a partner. And again, this is back in the 70s, and we had this idea of buy and sell on the internet. Mm-hmm. Okay, so the internet, hardly anybody knew about what the internet even was, but we had a buy and sell idea like at what Amazon is today. And we tried to go out there and raise money. We couldn't raise any money. We tried for 2 years trying to raise money. We just couldn't raise any money. So after 2 years, we packed it in. Okay. Now, that's our big success and our big failure, because if we would have been more persistent, we could have been billionaires, right? We could have been the first Amazon, but we weren't. My next venture after that is that, again, from an information technology background, put together a service. The service was simply to bring people that had knowledge to organizations that needed that knowledge and bring them together to one, right? And make it what I call consulting as a service. And then be a middleman and sell it out. So I did that. I sold that. The next venture I had is that I know nothing about advertising at the time. And what I did is I'm a golfer. And I realized that golfing, the tendency in golfing was going down. The decline of number of golfers wanting to play was going down, been gone down for many years. And golf courses were on the verges of packing it in, of closing. And I came up with this idea, why not put advertising on the golf course? They have got all this room. They have room for advertising everywhere. So I went locally here where I live, and I ended up proven the concept. And then I sold the concept off to another organization. If you ever watch a PGA event or a professional event, you'll see advertising around the golf course. So that's basically my journey of how I got to be an entrepreneur. But one of the things that I realized when I went through all these different things is that, again, you need to learn something. If you're going to be an entrepreneur, you need to have the passion for whatever it is that you're doing. Okay. Being an entrepreneur is not a replacement for your 9-to-5 job. It's not. Okay. If you think it's just a way to buy a job, then go do something else. It's not a replacement for that. You need to have the passion behind that. You need to make sure that you provide value, and value, whatever you're creating must be value that people will pay for. All right. And the next thing, you must make money. So I call this the 3 Ps. I call this people, profit, and planet. All right. Not necessarily in that order. So I always say, if you look at the 3 Ps, if you hire talented people and you provide something to people of value that they're paid for, and you take care of the planet, you'll be very, very profitable. So that's a kind of the way that I learned, and kind of my journey to where I am. And then of course, life got in the way. I worked and did various jobs because I had a family and stuff like that. And really difficult to be an entrepreneur at the same time when you're having a family. That's one of the challenges that we have. But what I did is I retired, and then I was approached by an organization to turn around and create live workshops on various subjects and teach those workshops across Canada and the United States. And I found that, wow, I have this passion, right? Again, talking about passion, I have this passion about helping people help themselves. Because when I presented these courses, from project management to negotiation to team leadership, whatever the course happened to be, people were so appreciative. They came and go, wow, if I only would have had this when I was 20 or 30 or 19 or whatever it happens to be. And I realized that education must be the key. It just has to be, right? So that's when I said, I wonder what I can do, right? And I looked at it, and then I started to teach at the college, and the same thing happened there. The students were so appreciative of this knowledge. I'm sure not of the way I taught, but of the knowledge I was presenting, right? So, and they really quite enjoyed that. So I sort of looked at this and said, well, can I take this passion and create something with it? And I looked around and I said, the colleges and universities are great for doing some things, but there's a missing gap there. So what I did is I created my business called BlocksEDU Learning Corporation, which is 3 years old now. And it comes with this premise of looking at what I want to do in my current business. It's to provide quality, credentialed education for future-oriented emerging technologies, so businesses and organizations around the world have the necessary talent to bring the value of those technologies into mainstream use for both commercial and social good. Because what I saw is a lot of technologies coming out, but people weren't being trained. People weren't getting that knowledge that would help organizations bring that into mainstream. And it started with blockchain.
So Juan, what problem you're solving with the BlocksEDU?
When I looked at helping other people, I decided that there's a bunch of emerging technologies that are coming, and there wasn't really any education for there. So there was a real gap between what industry needed and what universities and colleges and education providers were providing. So the problem I'm trying to solve here is basically to make sure that we have the corresponding education and knowledge so people can be employed. And they can help industry get to where they want to be and capitalize on the new emerging technologies.
So where did you get that? How do you understand that what is the market is changing, and what kind of course you should design for those students?
Well, that's a very interesting question. So how can you look into the future and predict what's going to happen in the future? Well, I have the saying, you don't need to know what the future is, you just need to create it. And so when I looked there, I saw that there was a lot of technologies like blockchain, IoT, lots of emerging technologies that are coming out that weren't mainstream yet. And they were new ideas, kind of like what the internet was back in the 70s. It was kind of a new idea and people didn't know about it. And the other part of that is there were a lot of people that were going around talking about these new technologies that really weren't telling the truth. They were slanting the truth towards what outcome they wanted. So my role as an educator would say, well, let's make sure that people understand what these technologies are, and then they can utilize them in a manner that helps society, period.
Yeah, it's I think I'm just saying that there is many others competitors out there. They are giving the same courses. So what do you think that's your solution is important for your student or for all the students?
So when you talk about many companies doing the same thing, you talk about many companies producing blockchain courses or IoT courses or things like that. The difference that we have is that we've taken our courses and we offer them to universities and colleges. And as you may well expect, universities and colleges have a rigor that you have to take it through. And that rigor basically adds credibility to the courses. So you can go to some platforms out there and buy a course in blockchain for $10, but you get a course for $10. It hasn't gone through any rigor, and it's not necessarily going to get you a job at the end of it. When we go and we create our courses for colleges, universities, and education providers, our goal is to either get them employed, keep them employed, or help them be more valuable as an employee. So it's always focused towards that. So that's sort of our unique selling position, but they're vetted. They're actually quality. Okay. And that's an overused word, quality. Everybody says their courses are quality, but I have this challenge with somebody who creates a course, offers you the course for whatever they pay, and then they credential it themselves. Right. So what we do is we don't credential our courses. Our credentialing comes from the universities and colleges and from a third party called Foundational Technology Institution, who look at our course, compare it to a standard of emerging technologies, whatever it happens to be, and then evaluates that and tells us and gives us the credentialing for that and says, okay, now that you've reached this standard, then we say that people can write an exam to become a professional. We don't credential ourselves. So that's a really big difference. I really have a personal challenge with any organization that turns around and says, I got the best course in the world. Take my 8-hour course and become a blockchain specialist, okay? And by the way, I'm going to give you a professional designation, right? That they credential, that's really not good. But the second part that we have here, so that's the one part of it. The second part is we go around the world and we employ top-notch subject matter experts to create our courses and to teach our courses. So we're not just taking somebody who says, I have an idea of what this emerging technology is. We're actually looking at people who make their living, are practitioners in this, not just a theory, but practitioners of this, that actually create our curriculum, along with our curriculum developers, of course, to organize it. And then from that stand, and also they teach it when we ask them to teach it.
And so Wayne, with that model, this is the model that you talk about around the education as a service piece that you sort of, and can you tell us a little bit more about this model of the education as a service? How does this pull together? How does it support both your customers on both ends?
Yeah, so it's kind of a unique concept. It comes again from my history of producing courseware as a service or consulting as a service. It's basically the problem that we have today with future-oriented emerging technologies is that, to produce an hour of online education is about $22,000 US, okay? So if you're going to create a 40-hour course, you're looking at over $900,000. If you're going to create a 120-hour certificate program, it's $2.7 million. Well, what university, college, or education provider that is going to put out $2.7 million and maybe have nobody attend? So what we did is become an education service. We look into the future. We create the future. We see the market out there. We create the courses. We then give that off to the education providers, universities, and colleges and say, don't pay a penny until you have enrollment. There's no risk. There's no worries. And that's the model. That's what I mean by education as a service. It's not to build it and hope they come. We build it and hope they come, right? But it's our risk not the university, college, or education provider. And the second part of this is that, being a teacher in a college, I know that very few people that do curriculum development would ask for $2.7 million.
Or neither know how to.
And get that money and then have nobody attend and still be working there the day after. Okay? Not going to happen.
Yeah. So Wayne, on that principle, Wayne, to move forward on that principle, because I hear you taking the risk. I think that's great that you're taking the risk now. But so the ideation and the innovation, like we talk about emerging technologies, and we talk about these things. And emerging technologies is such a it's becoming such a buzzword too. But how do you know which is the emerging technologies that you should focus on, and how you should build programming around and bring that back to the institution?
That's an interesting question. I have a research department, and what we look at there, we look at trends. Okay, and if you look historically, if you look at almost every technology we had at some point in time was emerging, right? And there's always this. There's this. You can almost graph it, right? Where it starts off a few people, and there's the people for it and the people against it, and then it becomes a little bit more and a little bit more, and it becomes mainstream, and then everybody does it, right? And you can take anything. You can take almost any technology that we have. I mean, back in my day, we didn't even have PCs. There was no such thing. It was all mainframes, right? But then the first PC came along, and what happened? Pretty soon, it got to be mainstream. Now, if I was smart, I would have created courses on how to work with PCs. I would have made a fortune, right? Because you can see into the future, and you can see in the future where things are going. And sure, it's a risk. And that's why universities and colleges and education providers are not going to go out there and do it, because it is a risk. And that's sort of my model is that I can convince people to give me money to build these courses on the fact that I've done my research and said, yeah, that's going to be the future. And we need to be out there, and we need to be out there and educated. And ultimately, it's going to become mainstream. It's just going to happen, right? So far, being successful.
So one more thing it's about. So your key resources, it's the pool, the talent pool that you have to teach the courses. What about the curriculum? The curriculum is yours, or
no? The curriculum is ours. So basically, when we look at subject matter experts, we're looking at content. We're looking at content, and then what we do is we take that. Myself, I've developed curriculum all my life, and that's what I really am. I'm a curriculum developer, right? And we have a couple other people where we take that raw content, we put it into a framework that then is what I call progressively elaborate to teach people, right? So it's like building blocks, and that's where BlocksEDU comes from, building blocks of education for you. You basically come on, you start with something, and then you build onto that, right? Net new as you go through. And that's how we develop our courses. And we do that online. And the reason we do that online is because we really believe that a lot of people just don't have the time to go and sit there and take a 9-to-5 course anymore, right? They've got jobs and things, a whole bunch of different reasons for it. Nothing to do with the pandemic, but basically the switch is on. And I'm a believer that you can actually teach anything online, right? So we develop it to be progressively elaborate, and we have the 3 E's. We want it to be effective, okay? We want it to be entertaining, and we want it to be engaging. So those are the 3 E's that we develop our courses on.
One more thing it's about, so you have a curriculum and you have access to the talents to teach those. So how you convince the universities or any education institutes to have you and your courses?
Well, if I had a magic formula to do that, I would have every university in the world on board. And I'm not saying that, I really believe in a university and college structure we have around the world because it credentials things. It makes things so that they're of value, right? If we didn't have that, then anybody could put something out there and say it's a value. And so that's wrong. But the challenge we have with universities and colleges is they're not forward thinking. They believe in a model that's worked for the last 200 years. That model was invented 200 years ago of how we educate people. You stand up there, you open up a book, you lecture to them, they take their notes, right? They write an exam, life's good, right? That's not a model that engages anybody anymore. So how do we convince them? Well, we look for forward-thinking universities, colleges, and educators around the world. We don't want one that says, no, this is the way it's always going to be, and we're not going to change that. We want to say, hey, is there a different way? And really, when we show them the different way, it's amazing. Once we show them the different way and there's no risk and no cost for them, they go, why would we not do that? Like, really, why would we not do that? We'd be foolish, right? From a business model, because you got to remember, universities and colleges and education providers are in the business to do what? Educate and make money. So they're not going to put, they want to capitalize on its emerging technology or future-oriented emerging technologies, but they don't want to put out $2.7 million. So it almost becomes a no-brainer once we get that audience. It's getting the audiences that's a challenge.
So that is correct. So if you're not charging universities, so how is it possible? So what you're doing?
No, we only charge them when they have enrollment. There's no cost to them up front, only when they get people enrolled. And then we end up with a split, right? Yeah. But that's how we make our money. We basically said, here it is. Try it. If people enroll it, we do it. If not, don't offer it next semester or next intake, right? It's simple.
So one more thing is about how you want to make sure the quality of your service. We use your quality, and you're this great, but I'm just saying that how you can tell them that's the quality of your service.
Well, it's kind of like taking a car for a test drive. Okay, what we do is we show it to them, and then let them kick the tires, right? Let them run around, and let them tell us that's our quality or not. If it's not up to their standard, and again, many universities and colleges have different approaches of how they want their courses to be. And we take our core courses and we modify them towards the way that they would like to have them, right? So not customized, but modified. There's a difference between those two, right? And basically we say, have a look at it. And they go, wow, this is cool stuff, right? And then they sign up and away we go.
So, Wayne, do you have like regulatory challenges? Because a lot of these institutions are regularized by I know we, University Canada West, is regularized by the BC government, and BC Ministry of Education. So, how does that complexity add to the challenge of developing?
Well, that's the beauty of it. We don't need to be regulated. That's why we go to university and college. They then take it forward, go through their certificate, the credentialing process that they've always used. It's just different courseware. We don't need to be. BlocksEDU doesn't have to be registered by the province of British Columbia or Alberta or Ontario or China or India or the United States or the other 30 places we're at. We don't need it. That's one of the second beauty, right? Is they go through, they get the credentials, whatever credentials happen to be. Plus, the only thing that we do is we have the third party evaluation that credentials it, right? That's the only thing that we say is that we need to have that. More from a standpoint of producing quality, not from a standpoint of being credentialed from an organized body in a province or state or a country, but more from our own standpoint to make sure it reaches our quality standards, right?
So we got an idea of the model, how the model works, Wayne. Now, and can you tell us a little bit more about different channels that you use now? Are these like in-person channels where you're teaching this in person? Is this an online, or is it a blended style? How does it work when you actually get to that point?
I could answer that by all of the above, right? It depends again. When our client, so a lot of clients want it to be face-to-face, right? And so what we do is we offer that as face-to-face, and we, for one of our universities, we have 4 hours every day that we go through. So that's one way. And then the second part of that is they may have some self-paced stuff that they do in the next 4 hours. So it's 8 hours a day, but 4 hours of what we call live, right? As live as you can be, right? And on the internet. So it's not in person, but it's live. So that's one model. The second model is we do a combination. We do blended, where what we do is every week or every topic, we have an hour presentation where our instructors will lead that, and it'll be interactive with the students, and students can ask questions and go back and forth like that. Or we can just make it certainly it's self-paced, right? Now, of course, the pricing is different for each one of those models. Because you can well respect that if we have in live a real live person there, that costs us more than having no live person there, right? So obviously and again, that's something that the colleges and education providers around the world, they have to figure out. They know their clients. They know what they can pay for and what they can't pay for. And a good example is, we're in India. Well, the courses that we sell in Canada are way more expensive than they are in India, right? So we can't go in India because they just not going to pay the $1,500 or the $5,000 or whatever it happens to be. They're going to pay something less than that. So we try to arrange how we do things based on the country we're in and the location we're in and the needs of that organization.
Do you use the local talents, or no? It doesn't matter where they come from.
We try to use that, but as you can well imagine, there's two things you need for somebody to be a subject matter expert. One is that they actually know the subject. Two is, can they teach? And often
Yes.
we have the challenge of one of those two is not right. Okay. We have people with great personalities and get out there and they can talk any way that they want and say all kinds of things, but they have no knowledge of the subject. So, and then we have the other way around. So we search the world and we look for recommendations. And if you have any, right, send them my way. Anybody that knows has those two qualifications, and we pay them quite nicely. And the reason we pay them quite nicely is we want to keep them, right? We don't want them to go somewhere else.
So you try to figure it out. So if you have a good content and talent, you can convince your clients to take this course, and they go for the free services and first and see if they want, they can continue. I think that is your main formula. It's use best and trying to sell them to the best place.
Yes. Well. Again, we don't sell to every college and university purely because some of them are not. They're not there yet. They're not forward thinking yet, right? So we don't do that. Again, we like to look at it. We like to look at people that are, or organizations that are forward thinking. I mean, that's worked with our model, right? Our model is, and we really believe that the world needs to have people educated in these future oriented emerging technologies, because there is a talent shortage out there. I mean, you just go onto LinkedIn or Workopolis or whatever and key in the word blockchain and see how many jobs are out there. It's unbelievable. Because people don't have the talent.
So wait, and the one question I have after that element, and we get the model, we see the formula, your formula for success, is you can determine it. But now, what happens with scalability? What happens in the next element where, like if you're providing all the instructors, and so all of a sudden you get 20 universities and you need to facilitate all those instructors and those programs. How you plan for that scalability as you move forward?
Okay, so that's a great problem to have, isn't it? So I have a plan for that. So actually, we have full-time instructors that are part of our staff, and we have part-time instructors, right? People that do that after hours or after their regular jobs, whatever their jobs that happen to be. So, and we have instructors around the world. And so from our standpoint, when we negotiate with a college or university or education provider and we have a live session, we go and let's say, for example, they want it at 8:00 in the morning. Then we go to our instructors and say, who's available at 8:00 in the morning, right? And they select it and go from there. And we have a prioritized list of that. And that's how we solve that. Right now, we have more instructors on board and ready to go than we have offerings right now, right? That's a good problem, but it is a challenge for us. But a lot of these part-time people who are doing it part-time would love to do it full-time. So I don't see that as being much of a problem. If they do it for 4 hours a day or 3 hours a day, they could quite do it for 8 hours a day. Plus, they can do it different time zones. They can do it at 8:00 at night and serve in India, right? So it's really flexible for them. And that's and again, we pay them well, and it's flexible for them, and so they want to service us too. So
perfect. It was great to see that how you come with a model that you find the problem, you find the opportunities, you find the talent to solve that one, and you find your channel to communicate with your clients and keep them and make them happy and satisfied. I think this is a really great one, and that is really great that you didn't just limited yourself with a specific service. You're trying to see what is still needed in the market and keep trying to improve your product. That is fantastic. It was a great one.
Yeah, and And then one thing, Wayne, too, that you're making it possible for these institutions to be, because one of the challenges they have is they don't have the money, like you said, they don't have the resources up front, they don't have the instructors either up front, and now you're taking that element away. So you already have the talent and the content. It makes sense.
When you look at the total model, it makes really sense for everyone, right? I like to look at this as who wins, right? Okay. So who wins? Well, first of all, the student wins because the student now has courses they can take that will make them job ready. Okay. And it doesn't take them 8 years to get there. Okay. And industry wants these jobs now. So that's the first win. The second win is industry. Okay. Because now they have people that are coming out with skills that they can employ right away. Okay. And then the third win is the universities, colleges, and education providers around the world. And lastly, BlocksEDU, right? Because again, getting back to my little saying about profit, right? If you're not going to make money, you're not going to stay in business. And if we don't stay in business, this nice service that I put together is not going to survive. So profit is not a bad word. Profit's a good word, right? As long as you have an idea that's shared, right? And everybody benefits from it.
So Wayne, great. We found a lot of different bits of great tidbits here of information, and I think that I love the model. We love the BlocksEDU, the concept with the education as a service. Is there any other tidbits or information or wise wisdom that you can pass on to our audience that we didn't ask you today that you could share with us?
Yeah, I'd like to recap sort of what we're talking about here. People talk about being an entrepreneur and they're thinking about, what can I do? And I encourage people, find whatever the heck you're passionate about. It's not a replacement for your 9-to-5 job. It's not a replacement, don't do it because you don't like your boss or you're not getting along with your coworkers. Find what I don't care what you're passionate about. Find what you're passionate about and turn it into a business. So that's the number one thing I think that I would advise people. And the second thing I would say is that make sure whatever you're going to do, that you have talented people to help you, and make sure that you provide something of value that people will pay for. And then the third thing is to make sure you do no harm to the planet. Those is my 3 Ps, the people, planet, and profit. And I think any business that has passion, that can find talented people to help them, can provide value to people that they're paid for, right? And does no harm to the planet, will be very, very successful in whatever they choose to do. So that's I don't know if that's wisdom or not, but that's just an approach I think should work for any entrepreneur.
That is fantastic. So one more thing that's because you said that's because I know some students that I'm working with that they don't know what their passion is.
So the question would be, how do you find your passion? So I don't know if you know much about the Greeks and some of the philosophers they had. So one of the philosophers used to take his students and take them out to the ocean. And he would ask the student, what do you want to do? And he would dunk his head in the water and hold him down until that student was forceful to come up. And he would ask the question again, what do you want to do? And if the student could answer, he let him go. If a student could answer it, he did it again. All right. Now, I'm not saying we do that, but it's almost like that. So my advice to your students is stop and think about what the heck you want to spend your rest of your life doing. And then figure that out. Even if you can't even if you have to hold your breath into, it's obviously, it's a story, right? It's a true story, but it's a story. And that's my suggestion is hold your breath. But don't go and ask your neighbor. Don't go ask your spouse. It's what you want, right? Don't do it because somebody says, oh, you can make a lot of money at it. Hold your breath until you can say, this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want to do. And for me, it's helping people. So, and I'm blessed that I get to do that. And I'm retired, so it's fun for me. I think it keeps me young because I'm not as young as I look. I'm older than I look, right? Or maybe that was my attempted humor. So that's really my advice to your students is hold your breath until such time as you can figure out what you want to do for the next, and then there's another philosophy out there is do it in 5-year increments. What do you want to do in the next 5 years? Because, as I mentioned earlier, I've done 5 or 6 different things, right? And each one has been a passion for me. But there comes a point in time where passion becomes boredom, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so again, 5 years, 5-year increments for the rest of their life. Figure it out.
Great words of advice, Wayne. The following the passion for sure. Break it down into 5-year increments, because that is what the world is moving so fast and change is happening so fast. We need to be adaptable. I'm going to put some words of caution out there. Please don't drown yourself doing this, because we don't want to take responsibility for that. Thank you so much, Wayne. It's been such a joy today.
My pleasure. It's not often I get a chance to talk about how I got to where I am today, and it's fun. It's fun to go back and look at those things and actually even think about it for a minute. Like, how do we get to where we are today? So it's good. I thank you very much, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you for being here. We really enjoyed that one. And I hope that the students will learn a lot from you. And we have a lot of short courses with you as well. So that is fantastic. To all entrepreneurs out there, our ambitions, the students here at UCW would love to hear from you and help you with your businesses through our capstone projects and internship program. If you think that you have a story that can benefit our students, listeners, please reach out to us at www.ucanwest.ca/innovation fuel.
Again, thank you, Wayne, and thank you, of course, to my lovely co-host, Galari. This has been Innovation Fuel, and thanks again to UCW for igniting listeners and dreams and thoughts in our podcast here. Join us again next week for an exciting new journey, a new story, as we venture down the world of innovation and ideas and entrepreneurship. Thank you very much. Look forward to see you next week.